Hello friends, welcome back to my channel and today we are back with another exciting video, and in this video we are going to talk about Docker Desktop. And you may think like what is very important about Docker Desktop in this video, because we have seen a lot of tutorial on Docker, how to set up Docker on Linux, Mac, even on Windows using Docker Desktop. And no, we are not going to talk about Docker Desktop on Windows in this tutorial. So there is a recent communication from Docker, which is very interesting for some of you. Like you can also have Docker Desktop now available for Linux. So as far as we see now is like we have seen Docker Desktop to be used on Windows, where we can install Docker Desktop and you can use setting up Docker containers and all those things in the Windows machines, right? Now we also have this option in Docker Desktop and Linux. Now you may also think about, like, we have Docker Engine, which we usually set up on Linux. Why we need to use Docker Desktop on Linux? So let's discuss all these things in this tutorial. So before I get started into this discussion, I would request you, like, if you are new to my channel or if you have not subscribed to my channel, click on the subscribe button, like my video, share, and give your feedback in the comment sections. Now I want to share this blog, which is from Docker, which talks about this Docker Desktop is now available for Linux, right? This is just published on May 10th, 4 days before, and they're also having a Docker conference, which is happening. So you'll be getting a lot more details on Docker Desktop in Linux. So now, if you see these details, like you can see that they're excited to announce the availability of Docker Desktop on Linux as well, right? So it's the same experience what the Docker Desktop people will currently have it on Mac and Windows. And we already know, like how Docker Desktop in Windows, you will have Docker Desktop install. You will have the icon where you can open it and you can configure your containers and other things, right? And why what would you would like to understand most probably would be, like, why do you need Docker Desktop for Linux, right? So if you don't know what is Docker Desktop, you may have to check out my other tutorials, like on what is Docker, why we use Docker, and all those things. But I would like to talk about why we build Docker Desktop for Linux. To answer that question, you can see the few points which the Docker is mentioning is, like, they want to have a unified Docker experience on all major OS, right? So if you have Windows, you have Mac, and you have Linux, which you have the graphical interface. Some of the servers you may not need the graphical interface. In those cases, we go for Docker Engine. But where we have this Ubuntu, Arch Linux, where we have Fedora, we have a graphical interface, and you want to have the same experience as on Windows or Mac, you can use Docker Desktop. And you can also see, like, a lot of new the features like Docker extension and all those things are available on Docker Desktop for Windows and Macs, which is also accessible here. And it's also see that it's a seamless integration with Kubernetes in Docker Desktop, because Docker Desktop also give an easy integration with Kubernetes. And also, in Docker Desktop UI, you have a user interface in Docker Desktop, not like Docker Engine. So it's easy for you to manage your volumes, containers, images, and you get a complete insight of Docker processor running locally on your machine. And there are a few other points which I want to add on why they want to run Docker Desktop on Linux. So when you run Docker Desktop, or whether it's on Windows or Mac or Linux, what happens is basically it's create a virtual machine inside the Windows and Linux, and on top of that it runs the Docker. Whereas when you run Docker Engine using a CLI, you directly expose your host as a Docker machine host, and in you're running your containers and everything. So as per their understanding, what when I went through the Docker conference meetings or some of the documentation, they also think like Docker Desktop is more secure than a normal Docker Engine, because you have a separate VM and you're running on that, so it does not expose your host directly for using this Docker. So that's one of thing which I also found, as part of the what is some of the benefits of using Docker Desktop rather than Docker Engine. But I think it's you have Docker Engine want to use on Linux machine, you can pretty well go ahead and you have to configure your user access and everything, how you want to manage your access for Docker. Now, if you also want to see like how you want to get this Docker desktop, right? If you may now want to understand how you can install Docker desktop, because like in Windows you can download the toolkit and you can install it. So now you may want to understand how you want to install it for Linux. We will see that on the next part. So before that, I just want to go through, like, it's a simple process, like, you just install like Docker desktop, similar kind of things, and that would be their future plan. But now it would be like a more of installation using the Debian or the packages. So we need to download the package and we need to install it. We will also talk about the roadmap for Docker, and also some of the issues where you can find all those things. Now I will link all these blogs and documents which I'm referring here into this video description, so you can go there and you can refer it. Now if you see, to install Docker desktop on Linux, we need to download the packages. So it can be a .deb package or it's an RPM package. So there are some prerequisites for this. So you can see it's like a 64-bit kernel CPU with virtualization. So that's one of the KVM virtualization support. That is the one of the requirement. And you also, like, QEMU must be version 5.2 or newer. System D init system, no more KDE desktop environment, and at least 4 GB of RAM. So this is the prerequisite for running Docker desktop on Linux. And you can see this currently it's supported only for these three platforms like Ubuntu, Debian, and Fedora. So if you want to install it on CentOS or Red Hat, some machines you may not flavors you may not be able to install Docker desktop. Okay, so currently you have these flavors, and you can download this .deb or .rpm packages, and you can install the Docker desktop on those. Now you can, if you want to get more information how to install it, you have these links, like how to install it for Debian, how to install for Fedora, how to install for Ubuntu. But the process is simple. You just go and download the .deb file. You just put it in your Linux machine, and you just do the installation, and you accept the license agreement, and your Docker desktop is ready. Now when you talk about Docker desktop, there is also something which you need to understand about the license agreement. So now Docker desktop also have a license agreement which you need to understand, because when you're using Docker desktop, whether it's on Windows or Linux or Ubuntu, it's not always free. So if you're an enterprise organization, and if you have more than 250 employees, or it's more than 10 million annual revenue, you are not supposed to use Docker desktop for free. You need to get a license for it, and you have to pay for that. So that's a change which they have done last year, and you need to follow that license agreement if you are using the Docker desktop on your machine. If you are using it in your home for your normal studies or your learning, or if you are having an own organization but which is a smaller organization, you can definitely go ahead and use Docker desktop. You can also see, like, Docker desktop is a free subscription, can be renamed as Docker personal. So if you want to use Docker desktop, so there is a Docker personal a version which is for personal use, which does not need anything to be paid. But if you want to use it for a professional large enterprise, you need to use for a paid subscription. I will also link this GitHub link into this video description, where they talks about the Docker roadmap. So you can see they have a clear pictures on what they are working on, like Docker desktop, admin management, update management, logs explorer, right, registry access management, Docker Hub, CLI. So there are quite things which they are working on their roadmap. So you can see what is the status and all those things using this GitHub link, so which I will link it, so you can refer that as well. And also, if you want to know, like, there are some issues which are reported in Docker desktop, and you can also create new issues if you want. You test it, and if you find some issues, you can raise it here. So like Docker desktop can't create a mount folder, Docker menu isn't available on GNOME 3, right? So there are quite some issues reported. So you also start trying out this Docker desktop on Linux machine, and you can create these issues in this GitHub link, right? So that's what I would recommend you to test out and all those things. So since they are also developing new application. It's our duty also, like if we want to use it, we have to try it out and we need to give the feedback so that they can enhance those, and they can make the corrections on those applications. So that's all I wanted to discuss on this. Like, you all would have heard about Docker Desktop on Windows and Mac, but I also wanted to tell you that it's available on Linux as well now, and it's a pretty simple process. You refer these links which I give into the video description, and you install your Docker Desktop on your Linux machine as well. So that is all for this tutorial, and I would request you, like, if you are new to my channel, if you have not subscribed to my channel, click on the subscribe button. Also like my videos, share, give your feedback in the comment section, and I would be very happy. Like, if you have any specific requests, you can put it in the comment section. I will look into the future videos. So thank you for watching.